Welcome to District TT, another episode of this fascinating show. We are devoted to sending you programs, hard talk, on the ground and in our studios. Now, today we're going to talk about that flooding which occurred last week. It ended about 3 or 4 days ago. And a lot of people are disputing about what caused it, whether it's garbage or whether it's climate change and extreme weather events. So, we're standing today at the midway point between the occurrence of the flood, which is south. That is about a mile from here. You'll find Carapo, then Kelly, the Caroni Plains, St. Helena and La Joqueta and so on. That's where the most extreme flooding occurred, or the suffering took place. And about quarter mile up so you'll see the northern range. What's the relationship between the northern range and the flooding? Well, if you pursue that northern range, this is the tail end of the Andes Mountains. If you pursue that northern range, you go down to Port of Spain, you go down to Chaguaramas, hop, you reach across to the Andes, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Patagonia, Chile. So you see a lot of the mountain tops are cleared of snow. The glaciers have been melting. Now, what does that mean, glaciers melting? Now, the glaciers hold a lot of water. When hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of glaciers melt, where does the water go? It goes down the slopes, fills up the sea, and so you have a lot of precipitation in the air, a lot of water in the hydrosphere. The hydrosphere is basically the sea, the ponds, the rivers, the atmosphere, a lot of water. So the water in the air, it does something. It creates precipitation. So I'm a little bit peeved because exactly 1 year ago, November 17, I sat down at the OWTU with members of the HRM and I explained to Trinidad and Tobago. I went on TV, press conference, radio, I explained to Trinidad and Tobago. These are the causes of that extreme flooding which occurred in Pinal, Debe, South Road, Puch Lagoon and so on. And here are the solutions. 1 year later, flood happened and people coming with the same old excuses, and we have a lot of suffering which could have been avoided. So what I want to do in this episode is to basically literally read out, line by line, word for word, exactly what the press release said, and to show you some of the clips of flooding. Glaciers across the earth, the Arctic and Antarctic, the Himalayas, Kilimanjaro in Africa, the Andes are melting. This is scientific, irrefutable. So where does all this water go? 1. It fills up the sea. Megatons of energy, otherwise known as hurricanes, are built up from a hotter and fuller Atlantic. 2. Water inches up on land, what we call sea level rise. 3. Higher and middle slopes of mountain chains are left without their seasonal supply of water. Dry weather, drought, and so bushfires occur on slopes and on foothills. 4. Lower than the foothills on basins and plains, we have extreme flooding. 5. More loosened water in circulation on land, sea, lakes, atmosphere leads to extreme precipitation. This leads to landslides on hillsides, particularly those hillsides affected by unplanned housing, deforestation, quarrying, mining, and so on. So this is the meaning of extreme weather events: increased energy and frequency of hurricanes, sea level rise, drought, bush and forest fires, and finally, flooding and landslides. The pattern of extreme weather changes is logical, but unexpected. Places which have historically experienced bushfires might now be seasonally wet, green, and waterlogged, for example. 1. The Orinoco Flow. Global warming has led to the melting of ice caps and glaciers on mid and lower slopes globally. The source of much of the floodwaters around the south, east, and western coasts of Trinidad are the Andean glaciers. Andean waters flow into the vast Orinoco Basin through the delta and riverine formations there, surging into the Columbus Channel and embracing Trinidad. in the rainy season, this surge is rough and intrusive. 2. Inland flows. During the rainy season at high tides, this water shoves up the large rivers of Trinidad, the Gordino or Oraput River, the Caroni, and the River. All these rivers are the main arteries of lowland basins, the Oraput, Caroni, and the River basins. 3. Outflow retention. Increased warming of the hydrosphere, that is the oceans, the rivers, the lakes, glacial ice and ice caps, causes increased evaporation, increased rain. When extreme rainfall occurs, water is loaded into our basins, particularly in very low-lying areas. At high tide, the water backs up the main arteries of the basins, while its free access to the sea is blocked. With nowhere to go, the water spills over the riverbanks, the arteries, and flows onto the land. Sheet flow, number 4. Water flowing across the land flows in sheets, a phenomenon called sheet flow. It is very difficult for hydraulic systems to trap sheet flow. Sheet flow water does not move obediently into channels laid down by our engineers. 5. Blockage and displacement. Large obstacles, embankments, interchanges, highways laid north to south across the direction of sheet flow, and large settlements block and displace water. Displaced water attacks homes, farms, roadways, causing dramatic social, economic, ecological, health, and financial losses. 6. Disrepair of gates. If the system of gates which ring the ramparts of the basin in order to control the inland and outland flows of water are not maintained and repaired, the flooding is aggravated. 7. Natural susceptibility. Our basin systems are swamp or delta formations. They are dynamic and complex hydrological, morphological, and biological systems. Historically, seasonal floods have served to invigorate, cleanse, or stabilize its biotic life. Farmers and residents who understand and respect the system accrue sustainable economic benefits. Much of this land is under sea level at mean to high tides. It is susceptible to massive flooding impacts. The solution. 1. Hydrology before hydraulics. Hydrology, that is a scientific understanding of the behavior of water in its total biosphere, that is land, the sea, and the air, must be understood before hydraulics could be designed. In other words, it doesn't make sense designing drains unless you understand the behavior of water on land and sea and air. Number 2, hydrological studies. It is necessary to develop hydrological studies programs at our local universities. Water control and management mitigation systems will be a permanent feature of our future economy. 3. The modernization of floodgates. The floodgates along the coastal fringes, which control inflows and outflows of water from the sea, should be modernized using electronic technologies and put back to work. 4. Retention ponds. Retention ponds should be built at vulnerable areas to control superabundant floodwaters. Water from these ponds should be used for agriculture in the dry season, that is, in an era of climate extremes. These ponds should also be built on the foothills of the Northern Range, on the North Caroni Plains. 5. Local government reform. Constituency government. All floods have a global origin, but a local impact. The impact is best managed locally by local citizens and organizations. Standard operating procedures and routines for medical, rescue, disease control, transportation, shelter, communications, blockage clearance, food storage, etc. must be developed. 6. Rainwater harvesting technology. Large volumes of water in the hydrosphere from cloud to rooftop to ground may be converted to domestic, industrial, and farm water. And finally, 7. Horticulture. Forests and stands of trees intercept water, draw up large volumes of water and store them. A dedicated horticultural revolution or transformation involving local communities using seed banks for food and crop-bearing trees and large forest species like silk cotton, salmon, etc. is a necessity. This will also mitigate wet weather landslides, which will become increasingly common. So this is the end of this press release. It was delivered to Trinidad and Tobago, the government and the people and the lands and communities of Trinidad and Tobago on November 17, 2017. 1 year again, and I have to come and read the same thing again. It's the same ideas. This is the hydrology. This is how the hydrology works, because if you don't understand hydrology, you cannot plan hydraulics, drainage systems, you cannot plan mitigation devices. You have to understand hydrology. Hydrology has to do with the behavior of water in the air, the land, the sea, the rivers, your homes, of your roof. If you do not understand hydrology, you can't plan. I've been talking about hydrology for 10 years now. So, I've just read to you what are the causes of that great and grave flooding in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's going to come next year again. And I don't want to have to be standing here next year and reading the same thing again. And then I told you what are the solutions. So this is basically a peeved appeal to the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago to listen. Listen. Kublalsingh, don't be wrong, you know. Thanks very much.